sore feet and weird con food and all that stuff. But we're so glad that you guys chose to end your con with about multicultural heroes. And this is, I hope, is a great way for you to end it. I think that you guys are going to be really, I'm just really encouraged by this conversation. I know I always am, and so thank you guys for joining us. Okay. Well, let me start us off a couple of things. We're going to have a chance to sort of introduce ourselves and share our own story. A couple of things you guys know is that this whole conversation is really about all of our story. And so as we go through this discussion, there'll be times and opportunities to raise your hand and ask a question, make a comment. And if you do, I've got some awesome swag for you guys from some of our artists from Artist Alley. So you definitely want to do that. So our ethnic creators from Artist Alley. Okay, so I have visuals to go along with this, and so. The other thing that I wanted to make sure is very, very clear, this is a very serious thing, this is very clear, is this thing right here. We love white people! Yeah, we love white people! Okay, so make it big. Let's cheer for all white people out there. And just because, anytime we get in this conversation, it's easy to point fingers or blame and all that sort of stuff, and that's none of that here. We get nothing but love here. All we want to do is just sort of elevate the conversation and just sort of bring life to this time. No, we do blame you for her. You gotta own that. You gotta own that stuff, man. Okay, so let's move into sort of our origin story. So I'm gonna start on the end here. First, before I start, my name is Tony Kim, and I write for Psycho Crazy for Comic-Con. And yeah. Okay, so this is a trope all over again. So I'm going to start over here, and Andrea, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us, when did you discover you were black?
All right. Well, first off, hi, I'm Andrea, and I'm a black nerd.
Yeah!
Black nerd pretty early on because it was a weird. I grew up in both black neighborhoods, black schools. Occasionally got bussed out to a white school, you know, for like different programs, stuff like educational programs and things like that. And it was funny because I didn't fit in either place because when I would be around like the white schools, they would be like, oh, black friend. You can ask about all the black stuff. He will be our black encyclopedia. Encyclopedia of Black Canada. You know, just like every question they could possibly
get around.
Yeah. No, that was my Latino friend that went to the same school. But no, it was, so it was interesting because then, you know, you get to like, oh, well, you're not like the older black guys, or you're not black enough, or you're one of the good ones, and all this kind of weird stuff. But then I would go hang out with like black friends, and then I want to talk about like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs and Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and Smurfs and Gremlins and stuff. And they'd be like, what's wrong with you? You know, and especially when it got to the point where it's like, oh, I got to go to school, I'm getting a full scholarship to college. Because you play ball? No, because I read books. I thought that was happening in college sometimes. So it's very interesting in that light of like, you have to learn so much of your own culture, learn so much of the geek culture, and sometimes they blend together and sometimes they don't, and it makes for some fun but also confusing times. And now I'm here.
So I'm Linda Lee, and I also go as known as Vampy Bit Me.
Yeah.
Weird name. Okay, so anyway, I was born in Oklahoma, so a very small town. It was called the city was called Okmulgee, and there wasn't a lot of Asians, I guess. So for a long time, I didn't realize color when I was growing up. So I was like thinking, oh yeah, I can totally do that, or I can totally look like that, and I wouldn't see color in a lot of. Well, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 82, so that makes sense. Yeah, so then I was like, wow, I could be, like, pretty much, like, color was never a thing when I was younger. It was always about robots, like Gremlins or like something like Milo Pony, Rainbow Bright. I don't even know what she was. But yeah, like, you know, like a worm. So it wasn't really about color back then. So it's just like me and my friends never really had an issue with that until I got older, I guess. And we'll delve into that later. But yeah.
And then Linda is an incredible cosplayer, and part of the conversation we'll be talking about is cosplay and sort of race bending and just that whole sort of thing.
It's the end of the convention, so I basically had Dr. Pepper and coffee today. You know where I'm at.
She's been on like 12 panels so far.
I'm excited to be here. So I'm really glad. My name is Dr. Andrea Letamendi. I'm a psychologist, a scientist practitioner, and I write about the psychology of superheroes on underthemaskonline.com. I'm really glad Andrea brought up actually intersection of identities, because when I was growing up, I was very confused. I didn't, you know, I grew up in Los Angeles, but kind of in the suburbs of the suburbs in Santa Clarita Valley, where Magic Mountain, Six Flags is. And I am, my parents are from the country of Ecuador, and one side of that has descendants from China. So I'm a quarter Asian and 3/4 Latina, if you want to, you know, for folks that really need to know, because sometimes people really need to know, and it's really important for them, and it's so not, you know, not as important for me, but that's if you want the fractions or whatever. I call it Latasian.
Yeah.
Latasians in the room. Wait, really? No other Latasians?
Any Latasians in the house?
In the house.
All right.
So I feel very alone, which is how I grew up. Which, you know, I didn't really identify strongly. I sort of identified more with what Linda and Andrea talked about, which is, you know, the geek identity, the identity of being really passionate about something. And I'm going to throw down a word called ecological niche. And my ecological niche, which is sort of like all the intersections of what makes Andre, and me, like the forefront of my ecological niche, all the things that are important to my identity. A small part of that was ethnicity, but most of that was like being a woman, being a professional psychologist, being into comic books. Those are the things that I'm excited to talk about. Those are the things that make me be.
And yeah, my name is Tony, and for me, my parents immigrated here from Korea about a year before I was born. And I grew up in a small town in Texas, and Linda was like the only Asian dude from elementary school and through middle school, and went through graduated high school that they were some of the brothers in the house. And I grew up just very much like there wasn't any heroes in my life, and it was basically like Sulu, and it was before like Sulu school, right? So Sulu and Bruce Lee, basically. And so I kind of went through what I think is very common among many minorities, the whole idea when you discover your culture and then you sort of discover the majority culture, you want to reject your own culture and sort of embrace, kind of disappear in the majority culture, and then sort of re-embrace it later on in life, and then you want to celebrate it, change it, and all that sort of stuff, which is I think very common for regardless of your ethnicity and background. And so yeah, so I just kind of then geek and nerd culture really was a center that sort of helped me sort of find my voice, and the character Superman, who I feel like is like this ultimate immigrant sort of character, was really the one that kind of like centered me into the future. So, yeah. Well, let's talk about a few examples as we kind of move. Oh, let me say real quickly. I know we're talking a lot about multi-ethnic sort of issues, but you know this whole conversation also is about LGBT as well as women. Anyone who's marginalized, who's misfit, who felt like they've been misunderstood in culture. This conversation is really all encompassing.
Including gingers. 1%.
Yes. Gingers in the house, Steve. Where are you? Gingers? Yeah. All right. We're gonna have a ginger on the panel someday. So, hey, courageous enough. We'll do that. Okay, so you know, Comic-Con is of course all about nerds. But you know, virtual became popular because of stereotypes, right? And talking about stereotypes, I think we all grew up sort of seeing images in media of different types of characters. Like, remember this guy, Speedy Gonzalez, right? And his superpower was that he was fast, and all of his friends were like super slow and drunk. And I remember just thinking how, you know, I love the cartoon, but I always asked myself, how come all the Mexicans are drunk? And then Bugs Bunny was brutal, man. Bugs Bunny was brutal when it came to everything. I love Bugs Bunny, you know, but you know, there was a lot of just craziness growing up, and many of you guys have probably seen some of that. Did you guys ever see anything like this, and what were your thoughts growing up? This cartoon and how it was depicted?
Yeah, it's weird because like when I was young, because you know, growing up they used to show a lot of Looney Tunes cartoons uncensored because it didn't really be a big deal. So you know, you would see like that. You would see the times when you know the explosion would happen in the face, they would have to dig the afterwards. And my personal favorite was the freaking Tom and Jerry cartoon with the Thomas. What you doing in the kitchen? Like, and so it's so funny that they had that. And then you look at them now, like I don't know if people know this, they went back and got like a voice actor to re-record all of the basically black woman voices of the old Tom and Jerry cartoons to make her sound a little bit more contemporary because you know a lot of that stuff you can't do nowadays. You know, you have someone attacking. But it was weird growing up. I was like, yeah, it's just funny.
Did you guys any childhood characters or anything that struck you as odd, like in your mind?
Well, I mean, I didn't relate to them. The one or two, you know, Latino, Hispanic caricatures, I didn't relate to them, and I probably just distanced myself from the idea that I should relate to them, that's about my people.
Well, if we move on, we see like Super Friends was huge. It's really sort of like became the core of the beginning of like the golden age of like superheroes in animation. And you know what I love about the Super Friends is first of all, Robin's legs are sexy. Equally as sexy as Wonder Woman, right? Very
It's the
disturbing.
same leg, actually. They have the same leg.
Same shape and everything.
Deep animation.
But you know, besides the A-lister of Super Friends, there was the B-listers of Super Friends that sort of came out. And so you had some guys like this, Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, Samurai, and El Dorado. You know, so you know, thoughts on these characters? Do you feel again? I mean, maybe you didn't notice it, but was it something that you guys liked or thought was weird, or what were your thoughts?
They could have done better with the costume design. Because it kind of blends into their skin, and I think that it's done something different.
I like how, I mean, again, more like a super high and tight costume going on here. It's like,
I would put some pants on it.
Didn't Zack Snyder announce they're all going to be in the Justice League movie?
yeah.
Well, see, this was a weird thing for me. Like yes, obviously, Black Vulcan is like, hey, you're a black dude. But at the same time, I was like, hell yeah, Black Vulcan is like, all right, it's good to see him. So you kind of sometimes have this weird mix of like, yeah, you know, it's the, you know, the token or whatever else, but at the same time, hey, that's the one I can relate to and look up to. I mean, we've all joked about the Black Mighty Morphin Power Ranger being the one black dude on the bunch, but then at the same time, like, there's a guy that's like a superhero crime fighter, and you know, seeing that, it's like, yeah, all right, we're superheroes too. It's a weird, you know, big bad.
But, you know, as we move on, characters like this, the Master Kung Fu was the first Asian American superhero in 1973, and of course he's wearing a karate gi and he's like deflecting stars with no shoes on, anything like that. And then similarly, there was Black Lightning, the first African American mainstream superhero in 1977. And again, making it very clear who's black, to make sure there was any confusion with that. But you know, as we moved on through the ages, we had characters like this, Mr. T and Bruce Lee. Capes and tights, they serve a huge purpose in pop culture as far as like the sort of strong characters. Again, maybe sort of, they're stereotypes, right? Broad stereotypes. But nevertheless, like culture shifting and they contribute a ton to pop culture. What do you think we saw these guys back in the 80s? And well, Bruce Lee's a little bit earlier than that, but do you feel like that even now, if you look back, like stereotypes, not stereotypes, good, bad, was it a step of progression for our culture?
For me, I loved Mr. T a lot when I was a kid. I was like, this guy is, I wanted to be him, I think. When I was in kindergarten, I'm like, Dad, Mom, do you guys want your jewelry? Because I just piled it on, and I'm like, yeah, Mr. T. So I actually liked him more than Bruce Lee when I was really young. But then when I got older, I was like, yeah, Bruce Lee is like the bomb. So, but, I mean, honestly, when I was that young, I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really know too much about color. I just thought this guy was cool, you know? Yeah.
Later, we had like Chips with Eric Estrada, who was really like the first Latino lead actor in a series or anything. And it made it very clear that Poncherello was sort of the lead, with John standing uncomfortably close to him behind him. But you know, again, these are all things. Well, I actually love about this character was that his background was not really a central part of his character. Right? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, even speaking to the previous characters, that there is some I guess, direction or development that makes better sense to me. That you have characters that have purpose, they have a mission, they're well developed, and their ethnic group, he just happens to be of that background. And so I prefer that to, let's have this character be of this group, or this character just have in their actual name, like some of these superheroes from the past, it seems very lazy. So I think this was a step in a better direction.
And then, we moved more into the modern day, and we all remember, maybe we try not to remember episode 1, Phantom Menace, and that was one of those things that we were all in line for like 10 hours, right? And we saw it, and everyone like loved it like the first 5 minutes, and then was like having to get back home, like thinking about it, and there was things popped up. And one of the complaints that it had was that it kind of had some interesting characterizations of different aliens, like the sort of people kind of accused of being maybe the flat-faced Asian and the Mogians in the corner, or the Jar Jar, or the Wheeler Watto character. That's right. What's that? Yeah, right there. So, any thoughts? If you guys have any thoughts, even when we saw, I actually didn't think about it until later on about this character. But what did you guys think? What do you think of Jar Jar besides the fact that you didn't like the character?
He's an ugly president of the Jar Jar family. No, Jar Jar, I mean, other than just the fact that he's being there, it's being kind of just a random character. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of that. I mean, what I loved is that, I think it was the same year the South Park movie came out, and they were able to even make a joke about it, because there was a joke in the South Park movie of putting all the black people up in front of the line for the war, and they even had one of the black guys go, "These are people gonna die." So it was like, we kind of got that. But it was weird because everyone was going crazy about Jar Jar, but when I thought about more, I think those guys, I thought that was even worse. Because when I watched it again, yeah, it's just wow, whoa, that's kind of interesting there.
It just struck me that, I know, I would assume that it's not just one or two people that have their hands on the script or involved. Obviously, there's a lot of people are involved in this, and I just wonder, why didn't anyone, before this ended up at the finished version, nobody stepped up and said, this might be problematic. This could be an issue, or even better, this is offensive to me. And I'm part of this project. So it adds additional curiosity about who is in positions of decision making, who is in positions of influence, who are the creators, and are they us?
Yeah. Similar with when Transformers came out too, with Michael Bay and all those crazy characters as well.
That was good.
Yeah. So a lot of that's similar. So this is the next topic I really want to get into, is the whole idea of race bending. Okay? And so, for instance, we all know and love this movie. Yeah! Come on, give it up! Moving without speaking. We're going to say the name. We're going to say the name. We're just going to. Yeah. So, this movie, or you can consider Lone Ranger, you know, Tonto, or even this is the worst. Godzilla started out Asian, and now he's white. What's up with that? What are your thoughts on just race bending in general? Like whether it's like minority to white or white, whatever, back and forth. Like, is it ever like a good idea? Do you think that it's something to be encouraged? Like, you know, and we'll get into things like the new announcement of Black Captain America and a lot of other things as well. But yeah, just your thoughts on yeah.
Well, pretty much cosplayers do it all the time. I think it's great. I mean, we're even delving into men just cosplaying women cosplays, generally women cosplay. I think that's awesome. And it's like actually well received now. I saw a couple guys wearing bikinis or something, and I was like, I know that character. You know, when I asked for the picture, it's pretty cool. And I think that it's actually cosplay, I mean, not only just cosplay, but I think that the internet is actually more accepting, and I guess they're of different, like, male and female characters. I generally do gender-bent characters, like Nightwing, and I think it's great. Like, I think that we're headed towards, well, in cosplay, towards a more positive light, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, let's look at some more examples. You guys are trying on this. So we all know and love Nick Fury, the current Nick Fury, and but everyone quickly forgets that he was a white baby early on, and you know, there was also this version of it. The Hawk was for you kids. What was lifeguard name on Baywatch? I don't know. A lifeguard was Nick Fury at one point. And then things started changing with you know, Miles Morales becoming into the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, and you know, so things are changing. Do you feel like in order to kind of create cultural change, that's what Hollywood and TV films do? Like they need to like take these popular characters and then change them into Black or Asian. What are your thoughts on that happening? We've seen a lot of announcements with Michael B. Jordan and as the new sports picture of them. Whether it's cosplay, Michael B. Jordan, the new Thor, or the Black Captain America, like, is it necessary for us to change these sort of iconic characters into, you know, something else in order to create change?
Well, the thing with a lot of people, I mean, we kind of forget because we see so many iterations. A lot of these comic characters were made several years ago at a time when we just didn't create minority characters, period. And this also was literally works and everything else. So, of course, as time progresses, you do kind of have to look back. I mean, obviously, when it's sort of a secondary character, supporting character, your chances are going to be easier being able to change a race or a gender and not get much out for it. But what's very interesting is the things about like Spider-Man and Thor and Captain America now that we're seeing, and especially now that they've all got movies now, more mainstream audience knowing these characters, to see that comics are taking these different forms of them, you know, whether it's a spin-off or a different character, whatever. I mean, it's good to, you know, to sort of play that right because we just haven't had the opportunity to. But the thing that always cracks me up is every single time it happens, without question, I'm sure everyone's heard this, you always get that person, well, why don't we just make Black Panther white? That's always the argument. Every time you change the race, it's always the argument back, to which I go, so of all the hundreds of comic characters, that's your one.
Introducing it, people all round up, and my chair slipped off the back of the platform, and I literally like end over end fell off the stage. So this was nothing. I gasped my leg open, all that stuff. So, but anyway,
you still smile, but
couldn't even tell.
Yeah, I did.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad. You dropped water, but stop.
It's like my hallucination. I'm scared. I was going to say we should probably mention that for a very long period of time, and in the present time, there's something we're experiencing which is symbolic annihilation. And in plain, non-Vulcan English, symbolic annihilation is when we don't see ourselves in the media, where film, TV, even social media shows a world that doesn't represent numerous groups of people that exist, you know, in our world. So so who cares? Why is it important? There's a fundamental psychosocial and individual psychological process as a result of living in a world and seeing the world portrayed to you that you don't belong to. So that, you know, what everyone values, big blockbuster movies, important television shows, social media, the messages to groups of underrepresented people are, you have very little value, you're not important, your voice is meaningless. And that has real psychological, you know, consequences for those of us who want, you know, we're desperate to have, you know, some kind of relationship, some connection to you know, this larger universe that we supposedly exist in. So there is a big problem with that disparity that's going on, and I think while we can really applaud Marvel with these choices, with the direction that they're taking, I think some of the time we forget that this is usually the exception, and that this is, as Andre is saying, we have a long way to go to really see full representation in comics.
What she said. I'd love to hear if you guys think that race bending is really a significant key part in progress. So I'll get to you in 1 second. So Amanda, your thoughts on just, you feel like that this is a good thing, or what do you think?
Well, I always think it's a good thing. And what I notice about social media now is that everyone has a voice. And I think that's how I got started, is when I just signed up for Twitter and I just started talking about my opinions on things. And I think that the more you talk, someone will eventually listen. And that's great. That's what's great about social media. So, yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir, Fred.
The one thing that I noticed about like maybe changing the race or the gender of the character is that they have to drastically change the costume of it as well. And for me, it feels like that character, that person is not good enough to retain the classic mantle. Like this redesign, I don't like his cowl. I don't like the way it looks. And it's like, oh, we gotta show you that he's black, but also we gotta hide his eyes. Or like with the new Thor, we gotta hide her face in the helmet. Like why can't it just be that person, but maintain the same mantle of the character? You know, keep Cap's classic cowl with his wings. That's what I feel when I see the character. Since he was black, or since she's a female now, we can't have him be classic. We got to change it up.
Yeah. Well, that kind of sets us the next thing. Oh, by the way, so I'm going to give you Batman, and the artist information is on the back here, so come on up. Question coming up soon. So that's a good point. Like, how important do you think are stereotypes? Like when you see the depictions, are all stereotypes bad?
Especially coming from a world of humor, obviously stereotypes play a lot into humor and things like that. And let's be real, for every stereotype, it's like that's a bad one. We know that one person that kind of fits us sometimes. But it really just depends. I mean, the thing is, well, for example, with like the race bending, a big argument that talks about is I hear a lot of times as well, can a white person race bend themselves, including with paint, to make themselves a black character? And I when the what's her name, dressed with this crazy eyes, so unfortunately black and like makeup on and stuff. You know, and then there's a little argument, and from a younger generation, I totally understand why they don't see the same thing. And sort of my argument is that, well, as with everything, there's a right way or a wrong way to do stuff. Like, you can tell when someone's doing something and it's like, oh yeah, I've seen people do, you know, a darker skinned character, and they are so passionate about the character that they put the detailed precision to make sure it's, you know, the exact skin tone, it's the exact makeup, it's the exact design, so that you can tell there's a passion in it. Versus, I've seen people try to, you know, around Halloween time or whatever, will play like a light-skinned black character and find the darkest black makeup and put on their face. And it's like, you didn't even try. It's clearly you're being comedic because you didn't even try to do the actual skin tone. It's clearly done for humor. And I think that's the things you gotta look into. Is like, there's the, you know, hey, this is humor, this is comedy, this is whatever, this is you know, or maybe you're highlighting the situation to put emphasis on it, versus, no, you just didn't think that way. and sometimes it's cloudy when you try to find those distinctions.
Is there anyone here that maybe feels like that race bending a mainstream character or whatnot is not necessarily the best way to go? And yeah, okay, so you raised your hand first and back. Yeah, great, great, great.
With all the money and creativity and incredible social network, the internet and everything, and all the incredible people out there, why is the only thing always focused on who we're going to change from the past? Why is there so much focus on who we're going to change from the past? If we had Superman be extremely Jewish, and everything he would say would be a Jewish comment or Jewish acting, would we still be okay with it? Or why do we have to change Superman? Why do we not have a white Fred and a black Barney? Isn't it, I mean, why does there have to be the same superheroes? We have incredible writers, incredible movie staff, incredible studios, all the things. Why is it only about changing what we had in the past and not about starting now when we all say we've changed and new starts and everything? I mean, I think the focus should be on the present and moving forward, and then every hero just wondering why and how we can figure out a way to change it.
That's great. Let me just get that to you.
Yeah.
For you, so.
Sorry, it's an old character.
And yet doesn't need to be changed.
That's a good point of changing the existing, starting new. So that comes up all the time. Is, hey, why don't we just start in a character from scratch and then, you know, and then versus, you know, go after some of these more popular ones. Like, where are your thoughts?
I think ultimately it just comes out to business. I mean, is it easier to make a brand new character from scratch versus making an adjustment to a character that everyone knows? Same thing happens in gaming. You know, you make a new IP or you keep rebooting the franchise that everyone knows. I think that's the tough part, and I think it's a very tough struggle if you're like, here's a brand new character, and they're also going to be a different race. I mean, Disney did that a few years ago. Here's 2D animation that you haven't seen in a while, and the Black Princess at the same time. Go.
Yeah.
Love it, right? And I like that movie. But you know, sometimes those things are a tough sell. You know, I mean, look at every movie we got. Now, everything is a reboot of something. You know, I'm waiting for like Hungry Hippos to movie or something. Everyone, you know, because that's the way it is. So of course, you know, can't make a Thor woman, make a Black Captain America, because those are names that you know versus creating something new. And who knows? Maybe this will be a thing where this is popular, and then of course they'll be like, well, now Thor's back. You know, maybe this can be spun off into a new character or something like that. You know, maybe that's the test that they're trying. But a lot of times it just comes down to that dollar, and there's still a lot of people at the top who believe that, you know, minorities don't get into the culture, minorities don't read comic books, minorities don't like sci-fi, fantasy, and it's us, groups like this, it's us, you know, going to see these movies that are, and seeing and getting into these properties that are showing more and more that no, that's not true. You know, women are here, minorities are here, and I just think the more that we can get more people in control to create and be the ones in charge of saying, let's put this out there, and people will get it, then I think we'll see change.
And Andrea, any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's really challenging because this is, you know, we're talking about a huge, you know, business venture. So I think it's risk-taking, you know, to create the characters. But a lot of times we do see new stories, and we do see, you know, Lumberjanes, for instance, is a whole new story. Or folks, you know, I think folks are reading this. Maybe not in this room. And so I think it does happen. But you know, I agree with what Andrea said, that it's a bit more complicated than just, you know, we should just create new characters. There's certainly the economical aspect behind it.
So, okay, in the green hair, bluish green.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
How do you think like creators of audiences can put pressure on making content so more like marginalized characters that also make voice?
So you're saying, how do we create pressure to create more diverse content? Other than like death threats and all that good stuff? Non-violence type things? Yeah, that's a great question. Before that, an awesome Groot and Rocket Raccoon Prince. What do you guys think? How do we create change when it comes to, you know, getting our voice out?
As usual, I'll be about cosplay. So pretty much I've been cosplaying a couple things. I noticed in the media, cosplay is getting more, I guess, it's okay. It's not that weird. My mom doesn't think it's weird anymore. She's like, hey, I like your costume. I'm like, what? Well, she called me on the show floor. She's like, hope you have a good time with your robot thing. And I was like, thanks, Mom. So I was like, that's cool. And yeah, she called it a robot thing. But anyway, but I just think that like, now that people are getting, and the race bending, that's very typical in cosplay, and male and female characters, I think it's also changing comic book writers' opinions on things a lot. And I see that a lot of comic book, the people that I usually follow in comic books, they're actually getting influenced by cosplayers. And I'm starting to see that in comics, that they're creating characters that are kind of like a little bit not usual because of it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I think it's, Andrea and Andre both mentioned, a lot of it is the market calls the dollars. I mean, we have to buy stuff. We have to like support and buy artists that are creating ethnic characters or ethnic stories, diverse stories really. And if we aren't buying, and honestly a lot of times we are not, if we're not buying, it's hard to get their attention. It's hard for them to follow that. Let's get somewhere in the back here. Let's get my Asian brother back there.
Was here last year for you guys, and so it's great to see you guys.
Welcome back, yeah.
This is for Dr. Andrea and the rest of the panel as well. I have a 6-year-old son. He thinks Star Wars started with Angry Birds. So I don't know.
That's all it is for episode 1, that's fine.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to ask you, because, you know, I love, you know, the original Star Wars. And like Linda, he's at the age where he doesn't see color, so I really want to show him the whole series, but I'm like, ooh, I really want to show him those stereotypes again, and hopefully he won't see it, but sometimes at that young age, I don't know, like, just want to get your opinion, especially you, Dr. Andrea, about your, that really big word that you used earlier, so something that
Annihilation.
Use more big words, so Batman print for you, awesome print.
In my Clark Kent job, I am,
No, you have to go slight.
I'm a psychologist and educator at a very large mental health agency. We see over 10,000 kids and families a year, and I train and educate about 500 therapists and clinicians who usually the kiddos that we see struggle with mental health issues, depression, suicidality, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, things like that. And something that I learned through this work is that, and I encounter a lot of caregivers and parents who worry about what their youngsters are seeing and what they're exposed to in the media, especially with, you know, the kinds of movies, like, we didn't grow up on this stuff, so I struggle to understand, you know, what age should they really see some of these films that are coming out. And what I've learned is that even though there's some concern, let's say, with the prequels, that was my understanding of your question, there was some concern with the prequels. That is not the only, those are not the only 3 movies that this message will get to him. It's an unfortunate message, and it will happen. So I would say, not to be too concerned about that particular set of films and to think about the bigger picture and where other messages can get to him. And obviously you're a caring, concerned, invested parent, so it's going to come from you. So any message that he gets, oh my goodness. So this is fantastic.
Wow.
Whoa.
So any message that he gets,
her Twitter handle is Arkham Sessions.
like my favorite thing. Essentially, like you can counter that with all of the time and all of the direct messaging, all the DMs that you have with him, versus these conflicting, very confusing, and sometimes detrimental messages to me.
Right.
Plus, episode 2 will mess them up more than episode 1.
No, there's plenty of ways to work with kids. So let me run through my last couple slides, and then we'll start opening up the questions. And so, fortunately, there's a lot of new characters out there that are sort of hitting the comic world. Basically, like the 99, which is one of the first Islamic culture and religion sort of superhero group. We've kind of seen Miss Marvel and the new version as well. So it's really cool. Of course, it's been like the rare to see it was The Walking Dead with Glenn and a bunch of Michonne and a bunch of other great characters. It's been great to see those characters be not only known for their race, they're really just trying to survive all together.
And interethnic relationships.
Yeah. And so my theory is that what's really going to solve all this is zombies. Right? We can just get the zombie problem, then racism would be go away. So let's open it up. What I'd love to hear from you guys, whether we have maybe about 10 minutes left. If we have questions, or if you yourself, I listen to a couple, have a character, story, book, comic that you want to recommend, say, hey, this is a great, diverse, story arc, all that sort of stuff, and that'd be great. So yes, sir.
I want to give a shout out to Mighty Avengers. Team that is mostly, if not all, people of color, simply disconnected from the Jonathan Hickman cosmic malaise super crossover mess that Marvel's putting out. It's a fun, true team book led by Luke Cage. So.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. Can we part with the okay.
Is that the Marvel thing?
Yeah. Yes, when back. Yes, sir.
First, on Friday, there were 3 Black Eisner nominees as writers for the first time in Eisner history. They all lost. They all lost. I feel bad now. I feel like I'm in trouble. But it's not my fault.
Don't blame the messenger.
But I wanted to ask what you thought about that, given the challenges that there's been at Marvel, even with Mighty Avengers. Marvel has had 1 black writer since 2009. DC has had no black writer since 2011, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, yay, we can be on the page, we just can't get paid. Also, in lieu of taking a print, if I could just hand out a bunch of my ash cans, and I've got some original characters going on. I'm working with several people. That'd be a great consolation prize to me. So, if that'd be okay if I did it at the end of the panel.
Yeah, just stay back there. Just everyone know where to get it. Just go to him. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, yes.
I want to know what you thought.
We haven't represented green in our
Peach boy.
So this question is for everyone on the panel. We just saw the preview for the new Flash. It's going to be the new WB Flash, and there's actually a female black protagonist who doesn't talk like this child. She ain't a sidekick. I thought that was great, so I just wanted to ask all of you what, whether it be comics or media or TV shows, what for each of you do you feel like is a project that's going in the right direction and not backwards?
Yeah, I mentioned mine. I feel like The Walking Dead, I think, is really changing a lot. Great show, and incredible comic, and so that's my favorite way.
I think shows like that, being like Lost, I just those types of shows that you can get a group of people, And then as far as like the female black protagonist, you know, right, I'm sure Scandal and Sleepy Hollow recently has been real helpful in that, and showing that you can have, you know, complex women characters, complex female characters, and you know, they have their strengths and their faults. And I think it's just, you know, that it just becomes a thing where if you can connect with, we all have the same emotions. If you can connect with somebody emotionally, it doesn't matter what race is. It's like, you just have that connection. So I hope we'll see more of that.
Well, and that character, I saw the full pilot. She's getting her dissertation now. For some reason, she doesn't spend a lot of time writing, so I don't know how long that's going to take. Right now. So I'm worried about her being able to complete her PhD. But I know that I'm like the only person who thought about that. But I really appreciated that this is, you know, like you said, it's not just this black character that we threw in. She's a well-developed character, and she's really relatable, and she's likable, and she's so multi-dimensional. So already I was drawn to her because, you know, of her kind of sciencey background. So it's a very good show in that regard.
I have an awesome Transformers print for you. How can I not answer flaws over here? We have both flaws. I have to, like, and then right after that, it's going to be a gentleman rush time. Please, go ahead.
All right, so I actually wanted to bring up a concern that I hadn't actually wrote an article on concerning the new Fantastic Four reboot.
Okay.
You know, I've seen a lot of people who think that, okay, I've seen a few people who think that Johnny Storm being rebooted as African American is progressive. I actually think it's the opposite, because while he is African American, they're keeping his sister white. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think that one of them is adopted, right? Or they're, yeah, right? Or they're the black.
She's adopted?
She's adopted? She's adopted?
I think so.
Yes, is that correct?
Yeah, she is.
She is. So, personally, I think it's great. I think that we should see more ethnically blended families, because we are an ethnically blended family culture, and whether it's through mixed interracial marriages or through adoption, I mean, I think we should represent that. I'm actually really excited.
I mean, unfortunately, it's baby steps sometimes, you know, because, you know, obviously if she was black, that would bring up some other possible concerns, you know, from people, and there's still some taboos that even to this day that people have when it comes to pictures of like romantic leads and stuff like that. So, but you know, sometimes you know, it's the same thing. Same with having Falcon and Captain America. It's like, you know, it's just nice to see that the progress is going. It's still room to grow, but you know, every chance that we can get to get something out there, it's great.
Start for you. I have a Black Lightning action figure. You get to play with your own Black Man at home. There you go, sir. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I've been like pointing this direction. So quickly, and then we're going to go over here. So I'll go with you, sir. Or let's see the light. Yes. Yes.
Real quick recommendation on Saga, which is great because
oh, yeah.
we talk a lot about representation on screen, especially for like comics and cartoons, where you get like representational characters like Avatar and Last Airbender and Korra. They all have multiracial characters on screen and white voice casts, right, and white writers, and like not much representation behind like where he is. So what can be done, or what do you think is being done to like kind of like make the representation more than just a name check for oh look at us being progressive?
You know, I think, fortunately, everyone in this room has a fifth part of that, because we all have a voice. I mean, we all have a megaphone called the internet that we can, whether it's through Twitter or through websites, whatever it is, like we can promote and really sort of bring the spotlight to minority creators and writers, and going through and buying stuff from Artist Alley, as well as just sort of demanding that there's more diversity in the core of our industry. I think it's a huge part of it. And so, that's one thought.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of times voice acting is probably you found a lot of first. I mean, one of my favorite voiceover voice. Elvira from Tiny Toons, Penny from Inspector Gadget. She's a whole bunch of white people. So it's really cool. And then even the new the Star Wars Rebels, Tia Serkar, Indian American is playing one of the main characters in that. I mean, so you know, it's nice that sometimes a lot of that's going on. I mean, I do agree sometimes it's funny to see minority characters and people voice them, but it also happens the other way too. So it's an interesting industry.
So I have an original card game by an amazing new artist. So his card's back. Anyway, and then let's go over here. Yes, go ahead.
How do you deal with the double question of yes, Captain America, Sam Wilson is taking up that mantle, but maybe they could have done it better? How do you deal with the question of yes, we're going somewhere, but it's not good enough, it's not fast enough? Because that, by saying it's not as good as it could have been, tends to make some people be like, well, yo, calm down. This is still happening, baby steps. How do you be no, it needs, it could have been better, it could have been handled better? How do you say that? How do you communicate that?
It could have been handled better. I mean, I just rather lean on this, believing in the best, not seeing the worst. And so until we actually see it and read it and experience it, to kind of try to withhold our criticism before that, that's just really easy for, especially in sort of our fandom, to really kind of get negative really quickly. And so, yeah, personally, I just believe that we all lead in our own way. We need to lead out with optimism and hope. But yes, right from the projector. And I have a special print of stack of postcards.
This is a question for you, Tony. You had said that you were the only Asian kid in your school all throughout elementary school and middle school up until high school. How did you try to fit in with the other kids around you?
You were holding a samurai sword. That is awesome. A little frightening too. How did I try to fit in? Yeah, I mean, I did what everyone else, a lot of people do, is you talk and act, and you sort of, I was intentional about not hanging out with other Asian kids and all that stuff, and it's kind of sad and terrible. But I mean, it was really hard for me, and like many others, it was really hard to sort of find my culture in the midst of the larger culture. And so, it wasn't until I kind of ran into some older mentors that were Asian American as well that kind of helped me sort of navigate that. So I'm a big advocate for mentorship and a big advocate for every one of you guys have younger versions of yourself in your own circles that are looking for guidance and direction. And so how many of us would have wished if there was someone a little bit older that could sort of help us along the way? And so I believe everyone here can sort of do that to someone that's younger, teen or whatever. So I just think mentorship is, I mean, that was huge for me to kind of help me keep from going bananas. So yeah. Okay, we have time for one more question. So anyone? Okay, there's one pointing at someone else. So there you go, back, right back corner. Yes.
Me?
Yes, sir. I have a comment for you. So.
Yeah, I'm actually an artist and also a writer as well, but I've been noticing some new changes from the IP. A buddy of mine named Dan Levisi is actually making his own IP called Last Man Standing, Killbook from Bounty Hunter. He actually made a whole world with different races, different monsters and everything. It's just crazy. It was this black guy with actual Asian skills and everything, and he has his own mindset and everything. Or we got Jawsome, a hybrid of a human and a shark that grips things to shreds and everything. And I guess getting to this point is that you think it's more better to have more people from different races or different backgrounds that actually write stories or make new IPs just to make it more acceptable for everybody? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I didn't quite hear your question. That last sentence again.
Different backgrounds, from different races or different types of stereotypes that actually talk about some stuff, and this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of feel like if you're deliberately focusing on a group, like a label, ethnicity, gender, you can get sidetracked. Just write a good story, write a good character, feel passionate about it, and think about the characteristics. Think about, I've been talking about throughout the day, as I've been drinking coffee and Dr. Pepper, I've been thinking a lot about what why we read comics and why we love superheroes. And it really doesn't have a lot to do with their gender or their ethnicity or their sexual orientation. It has a lot to do with their psychological characteristics, that they're empowered, that they have this purpose, that we relate to that purpose or mission. And so a lot of times, sure, sometimes that connection can happen through identity, but it doesn't always have to be ethnic identity if you really write a good story. So I tend to want to think bigger and broader than let's just have Latina characters and female characters, and let's switch Thor to this and that character to that, and then that'll solve everything. It really doesn't. So I'm just hopeful that there's just some meaning and passion behind who the characters are that's really beyond, is now getting like Star Trek language, like beyond, let's transgress beyond these groups.
Well, this is unfortunately the last part of our questions, but in my closing remarks, we were remiss without, this conversation has been going on. This hasn't been happening just the past few years. This is the beginning of time. And so, we all know and love Jesus, the ultimate superhero, right? But people always flip out when there's like Black Jesus. Oh, probably looks more like this. But actually, the real secret is that he was Asian. Yeah. You don't know this, that's the secret. So, but this whole multicultural conversation again, this is much broader conversation and a conversation that can't be solved in 45 minutes. But really, what it's about is just sort of. Martin Luther King talked about elevating the level of relationships where justice prevails and people reach their full human potential. And so really it's about elevating the conversation. Once we understand each other's stories and understand as a community, we can sort of make change together. So you all have a part of playing that, whether it's through Twitter or through websites, or through buying content, Artist Alley stuff, comic books, TV, film, whatever you support, we love to create change. And so let's end with this. Andre, where can I find more of your work? I put this information there. Talk about that.
I look like the paperclip from
You were making an awesome paperclip. Tell me about your...
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/blacknerdcomedy. I am on Twitter @blacknerd, which I know is kind of a little bit of oxymoron right here. We're talking about don't label yourself black, and everything I label myself as black. I keep That's a little bit hard. I'm just saying where you are.
Where'd you get these from? I like my own eyebrow. It's pretty much Vampy Bit Me everywhere. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And
best way to interact with me is on Twitter @Arkham Sessions, or you can go to goodmaskonline.com. There I write about psychology and superheroes. I do a podcast every week about the psychology of Batman, the animated series, which is just this one show that changed my life. Yeah.
Great. And for myself, MySpace! All right, well, so anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, our panel.
And being humorous and being, just creating an openness so that we feel like this is